being dismissed and students are coming back into the buildings. So overall, knock on wood, for the start of the school year, I got to give praise to Mr. George and his group for doing a fantastic job. So is it okay to move forward with this bill?
Yes, this is Richard Belts, yes.
Mr. Fuller?
I'm sorry, I had something wrong with my microphone. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, yes, I approve it also.
Thank you. Okay. I'm going to switch back to our agenda.
Are you still switching there, Mr. Cleaver? I think
Yep, I think let me go back here. Sorry about the delay. Are you able to see the agenda again?
Yes, I can see it now.
Okay. All right. The 2019-2020 year-to-date budget update. I do know that information was shared with the board, but I just wanted to touch base regarding that. We did get our notice regarding completion of the AFR that is required to be submitted. So I know Joe is working to look at that. The way the AFR works is for the submission for the 1920 school year, it's due October 31st, but they will accept it until November 30th. With Joe being new and everything, I already talked to him that, if needed to apply for an extension, many people do that. We have done that in the past here as well. November 16th is when they start accepting extension requests. So we'll see where we're at, when we get closer to that date about getting the completed AFR out and submitted, but we may need to apply for an extension with Mr. Surge going to be putting that information down just to make sure to double check and triple check everything.
Okay.
Okay. Cyber school cost review. I wanted to this was a question that was submitted, I believe by Ms. Bowes, and I did respond to her mail, but I just wanted to give an update. When we look at cyber schools, we do fluctuate throughout the year between 150 to 180. Now, these are cyber school students that are currently not in our cyber school. These are an outside cyber school agency. So using the 151 number that we had for the past, the regular ed cost for 1920 was $12,890 this per student. The special ed cost is approximately $30,000 a year per student. So using that, if you looked at the total number, and if we went with 151 based off the 1920 number, and again, these numbers have gone up recently with, as you can imagine, with the situation where everyone is experiencing with COVID. Some people were concerned and have chosen to go a different direction, but we continue to try and get them students back. You're looking at $1,946,390 for cyber school costs. And that's if every student is regular ed, and that is not the case. We have probably anywhere from 20 to 25 students that are special ed. Within that number, again, if it fluctuates, they go in, they come out. We do constantly check to make sure that they're still residing within our district. But that just gives you an idea, and it'll kind of touch base a little bit more on it with the unfunded mandates that are listed there. But our LAVA program that we had last year cost us $4,500 per student to run, and that was not using our teachers. This year we are using our teachers, however, last year we did not. And even at the cost of $4,500, that would bring that cost down to $679,500. And I wanted to bring that to the attention because I know there's a lot of discussion out there about cyber schools and different options. And again, I think the argument people are not understanding is it's not so much that we're arguing that having a cyber school option for students who wish to take part in that is bad, but we're having discussions with the legislators, different thing is the cost. Where we're able to do it for $4,500 for each student, you know, using other teachers, not even our own, where it's completely outsourced. The fact that they're able to charge, you know, upwards of $13,000 a student in special ed, up to $30,000 a student is where we're having, you know, the discussion regarding cyber school. And I just wanted to bring that to the committee's attention. I know that was one of the areas that when Patty was here, she discussed with, you know, the cost and the way the budget outlook was presented. So I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention and also address that because that was a question that was asked at a prior meeting.
Okay, thanks for that info. How have our cyber numbers, our outside cyber numbers, changed this year?
They have gone up and down. Like I said, we're anywhere from 150 to 180 at the high, but within a week we could have 5 come back, or we could have 5 leave. I mean, and that's the difficult part is having that constant transition with some of these students. We have had several that have come back, but we've also had several that have, you know, decided to go outside of the district for cyber school. Okay. Anyone that watches TV, you could see that they're out there recruiting heavily. You know, there's always commercials about the programs with the cyber school programs. So there is a big push for them. They actually had a waiting list at one time, and the district was being, you know, told that, you know, just enroll in the district for now until we get you a spot in the cyber school, because they were actually looking to hire more teachers because they had a large increase in students taking out of district cyber school options. But that's around everywhere, not just, I mean, that's just not a Lehighton issue. That's a statewide issue. The cyber schools really took advantage of the COVID situation and, you know, promoted their schools and advertised their schools on TV. And I know they advertise as a free education, but there is still a cost to the district. The free part is at a cost to the taxpayers in the school district. So to say free isn't necessarily a true statement.
Right.
Any other questions regarding cyber school?
None for me.
Unfunded mandates is the next discussion item on here. One of the things we talk about a lot, and I don't want to keep going back to cyber school, but there's many unfunded mandates that are out there that schools are required to cover. You know, and 2 of the big three, I should say, the big cost drivers are, you know, the increase in pension contributions that every district has been required, that is being mandated to pay. And if we don't pay them, what they do is then they subtract it from your subsidy the following year. So either way, they are receiving your money. And I did touch, I don't want to reiterate the cyber school, but that is another mandate that years ago, districts received reimbursement for students who were attending cyber school. Then when Mr. Corbett was the governor, that was zeroed out. And then that was not a reimbursable revenue source coming back to the district. And the other thing too is, you know, there's a lot of costs affiliated with special education. You hear a lot of discussions and the laws that are required with that. And one of the things when special education law was passed, part of the law when it was passed, now this is back in the 1970s, the law included that 40% of the cost would be covered. That was part of the law that was passed. But to date, because the cost has been accelerated at a rapid pace, we do not receive that much in state reimbursement to offset our special ed costs. So our special ed costs are increased every year. So that's one of the areas. And the other part too, it's not a lot, but there's a lot of things that could be helped. You know, there's a lot of required trainings that cost districts money to send people to. Also legal advertising now with social media. If they would, you know, instead of having to to advertise in a public newspaper, to allow it to be on the website for advertising. Every time we put an advertisement in the newspaper, there's a cost to that. So there's a big cost affiliated with legal advertising when it comes to general meetings as well. But I just felt it was important just to give you a brief update on some of those mandates as we begin. I know here within the next couple of months, we're going to have more discussions on budget. So this is an area, that you'll hear more about in the near future. Any question from the panel on those mandates?
None there.
Pass through student tuition. I know we talked about this. I just wanted to give an update on it. What I mean by pass through student tuition, once Patty was here, she did uncover that districts were not being billed for students who were attending our district regarding tuition. We have since continued on billing since that notification, but there was a number of outstanding bills that have been let go that there wasn't budgeted for. And I just wanted to give the committee an update because part of this too is the recouping some of these overdue tuition payments was also a discussion when we reinstated transportation. So Jim Thorpe to date has paid the overdue notices, so they were paid up. Weatherly School District was billed, and they have since paid $73,065. We still have $58,945 being billed to Weatherly. Panther Valley was billed $277,262. To date, we haven't received payment. And then Palmerton was billed $573,401.79, and we're working on with them with payment options. So there is a large amount of money that is outstanding with past due student tuition, and I wanted to make the committee aware and keep giving updates regarding these areas because I know we are planning to use some of that money to help offset that transportation cost that was unbudgeted, and that was also presented when we did approve the transportation motion. We did have in there listed that recouping these funds would help pay for that area.
And am I remembering correctly that that has already been put in last year's budget? So it doesn't impact us from a budgetary perspective, but it does have a big impact on our cash flow for this year.
Yes, that is correct, Mr. Or it's the cash flow piece that has the impact on. That is correct. Anything else from the committee at this point before I turn it over to the public?
Nothing else for me.
Mr. Phelps?
I'm good.
Mr. Bradley? Mr. Bradley?
Yes, can you hear me
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
Excellent. So this is a committee meeting. Normally committee meetings allow the public comment during the meeting itself. It's not driven the way you're driving it. And it is the opportunity to vet information to the community prior to going to the board. You put a bus bill up for $83,000 that you identified as 1 month. Is that correct?
That is, well, August, September, yes. There was some schools that did start in August, so we were required to pay.
Right.
Some
But
of those.
basically it's 1 month.
Yes.
So where does that fit into the budget for the year? If you multiply it by say 9 months? Or do you
That was
multiply by
part of
10?
the, if you remember when we approved that motion for the 800,000, that was explained in that motion of how that would be helped out to pay, and we talked about, as we just
Correct.
discussed.
When are we going to get busing for the children that are local to the school specifically before this coming winter time when you're going to have all these kids walk in? We have to protect the safety of these students. Isn't this finance committee going to review opportunities to reallocate budgets to protect these students? Nathan, aren't you going to try to work together? You said this was just tentative and ongoing work. Nathan, committee member? Treasurer.
I believe you're putting words in my mouth there.
No. We as a board told the community that this was, kick the can down the road, but we keep looking at it and keep trying and keep doing things. I mean, have we done anything in the last couple months to get these kids transportation at 70 times safer than what they're doing now? 70 times, not 70% safer, just 70 times safer. And did anybody even call George's and ask them to find out what the cost was to get transportation more commensurate to what it was last year for these kids that are in the outlying reaches of our communities? Did you call them, Nathan? Did you try? Did anyone on our administration call them and try? How about this? I called them.
Bradley,
I found out that nobody called him other than Cleaver, and he never once tried to get this part of the puzzle done. He just said, this is what I have to spend. What can we do for that? And that's the testimony I was provided. Now, are we going to actually attempt to get these kids safe transportation, or are you leaving them in the lurch? Mr. Fuller, the duly elected, honor your oath, act with fidelity board of director.
Mr. Bradley, there's no change in the transportation situation at this time.
Have you made any attempts to make a change? Are we trying to make a change? Are you going to make an attempt to protect these students as the treasurer, as the finance committee meeting, as a board of director? I reached out to Mr. George, and he said he's more than willing to work out a plan, find out what it is. We need to go through the channels. And I'm wondering which channels, because we're being blocked from making sure that these kids are protected. All we have to do is ask the guy, how much does it cost? Does anyone even have that information? Because you were supposed to bring that to your finance committee meeting so that you could protect these students. I mean, you got to do your job, man. You're telling me you didn't do that yet? Can you please do it before tomorrow's board meeting? Make a phone call. One phone call. Do you need his number? Nathan, do you need his number? Would you like to make a phone call for behalf of all these students that are walking to the community roads during the wintertime before winter gets here?
Mr. Bradley, it sounds like you've already made that phone call. Perhaps you could just share with the board at the meeting tomorrow what you've learned.
I did. I learned that nobody, hold on, here's what I learned, Nathan. I learned that nobody on this board or on any of the committees, including the finance, which was supposed to do it, it's on your agenda, was supposed to call them and say, how much does it cost? And then George's can assign a dollar amount to protecting these students. And then it's our responsibility as directors to say, okay, now we have a target. How are we going to get there? What do we need? What do we need to shift or change? And that responsibility is ours as a board. We're the only ones that can assign a contract. We're the only ones that can release a contract. Basically, you're looking to release a contract to George's and ask them what would the cost of this contract be to move these students out of harm's way, 70 times safer, so they can get bus transportation, at least for the winter months. And it's not that hard to do. And then if after George's proposal comes in, if we wish to bid that out to other entities or agencies, that's our responsibility, and we can probably do that. But the work should be done. The board has the responsibility. We can assign this information to our subordinates, but apparently they have not been doing their job. And that's becoming more and more evident that A, they don't accept the responsibility to do the job, and the board has not been assigning that responsibility effectively. And therefore, things need to change. Mr. Fuller, will you please make a phone call to George's, because I spoke to him, and I was thoroughly impressed with his cooperation and his efforts and his ability to do that. However, fear from the administration took place and said, look, we can do all this, Mr. Bradley, piece of cake. We need somebody from the administration that can do it. The rubber stampers, the blind trusters of the world have to assign it to somebody so that it can get done. I don't have authority as an individual director. If the board would like to authorize me as a director to act on behalf of the district, I'll be glad to negotiate that contract. No big deal. We'll have that done in lickety-split. But that's
Okay,
not how the
Mr.
board works. That's not how government works. You need to do it right. You're in a committee meeting. You're a committee member. You're a treasurer. I think you need to assign it to your administrators, make a recommendation to your board to have this done, and then authorize to get it done. That's the process. Will you please
Mr.
do
Cleaver,
that?
could we
during
talk to
this-
George's and see if we can find out what that transportation would cost?
Can you please do, no, you can't, you got to do it through the recommendation. Come on, you got to follow the rules, man. Do the recommendation to the board at the next board meeting to authorize the administration to seek the cost to move these students for the winter months. That's the process, sir. That's the only thing within your authority, so you don't overstep your government bounds. In this committee, make a recommendation. Let me help you. Hey, Finance Committee.
Mr. Bradley,
Hey, Finance
that's the
Committee.
one
Let me
who
help you.
told us a
No,
minute
no,
ago.
I'm speaking.
The
I'm speaking.
administration should
I'm
have already
speaking.
called George's.
I'm speaking. I'll pull a Kamala Harris. I'm speaking, sir. Mr. Finance Committee meeting. We recommend that the board authorize the administration to seek the cost to move the students that were transported last year during the winter months of November, December, January, February. At which point George's will provide a number that can be reviewed by the board, and either a contract can be created or not created as needed by the board. Can you please do that for me?
Mr. Fuller, we could bring information to the
No,
board.
you need to do it
Or-
properly,
or,
Mr. Cleaver.
Information.
Enough of this. Enough of it, man.
We could.
You
we
need to
could
do
bring
it
that
properly.
information.
The committee, the
You have
board
Other
committee.
individuals also wishing to speak, Mr. Fuller.
I know, but I got other things to go over here, sir. This is a committee meeting. This is the public's opportunity to talk to its government. All the other committees were canceled. But Mr. Fuller, the government board committee.
Mr. Bradley,
the
your
agency-
opinion and mine of how this should be handled are entirely different. A
I know,
moment ago,
mine is lawful
Mr.
and yours
Cleaver
is not.
should have already called and gotten this information. Now you're saying
No.
we can't ask him to do it now.
He
Why
has
don't you
to
move
do
on
it
to your next
officially.
topic? I have no further response on this issue.
I understand, and that makes you very ignorant. But here's the deal. You can call, I can call, anybody can call and get information to be informed. Once we have the information, we then go to a committee meeting to act as government, as a government agency, and authorize, recommend to our board as a whole the topic so that it can be executed as a board, as a government, because we, you and I, cannot act as government individually. We can collect the data, but then it's got to go to our board for approval. I'm going to the committee, which is this one, which is the proper channel, to tell you, as a citizen, participant, as my government representative, to make a recommendation on behalf of the Finance Committee that the board then authorizes its subordinate administration, like Superintendent Cleaver, to call the bus transportation company and seek whatever we decide as that needs to be done. And I believe it should be 4 months, and I believe it should be for the same number of students that were transported last year to protect them. And that's the process. Can you please follow the process? If you don't believe that that's the process, that's fine. Go read. Don't be ignorant the rest of your life. But that is the
Yeah,
process.
we're going to move on.
No, you're not. I still got the
Appropriate
AFR.
comment.
Hold on. We still want to talk about the AFR, the
Ms.
unfunded
Bose.
mandates, and the other process. But let's deal with this
Ms.
one
Bose.
first. Mr. Cleaver, please do not.
Can you hear me?
Yes, and please refrain from
No, Miss-
from saying that based upon
Mr.
the
Cleaver,
comments that we
please,
continue,
you have-
Mr. Bradley. Please
Mr.
refrain
Cleaver, please.
refrain from them. Not that you would, but I'm just reiterating that if you would please.
Mr. Cleaver.
Fine. I don't
Thank
generally act in that manner, but
Thank you. No, I know. I'm just putting it out there because we continue to remind. But thank you very much.
Now, you talked about the AFR and when it needs to be submitted. Is the yearly audit finished?
No, that is not.
Do you know when that will be done?
I do not, and I would have to get back to you. I will get that information because when I got that notice, I was going to try and find that out myself, and I do not have that information for you, but I will find that.
Okay, now, how many students do we have in Lava this year?
Lava right now, we're about 180. That's our program. That is our asynchronous program that we offer.
Right,
Yes.
okay.
We also have students who are also on the swivel and different Zoom sessions where they're not physically here, but they are attending. And those students have to log in at the time of the lesson.
That's synchronous, right?
Yes, that is correct.
But I'm more concerned about the Lava because that costs us money, you know, outside of what the school, you know, what is in person or swivel.
Right. Our Lava program is funded. We do have the program for all the subjects for grade 7 through 12, and it averages about $1,000 a student. That it's costing us currently because we're using our own teachers. Before it was $4,500. And all the students who were in that Lava program are now into this new program where it is costing the students who were being, if that makes sense, were being costing $4,500 last year is now costing us $1,000 this year.
Okay, so we're saving $3,500 through Lava.
Yeah, but there's a lot of students, so it's about the same. I don't want to say
Well,
that.
you said it was 180.
Yes,
So that's, you
but
know,
there's many more students. That is, we only had approximately 50 students before the whole COVID
okay,
situation.
Okay.
Yep.
that's fine. Tuition. I remember asking, probably 2 years ago about tuition. And I was told there were no tuition students. Why do we have, explain how we have students that have to pay tuition here?
Yes, the students who are paying tuition here are students who attend programs that their home districts do not offer. For example, some districts do not offer emotional support. So if they have students who qualify for emotional support, they would pay our district to educate them. So we have those students here, and in turn, we charge the sending district's tuition. Also, when we had a facility out here concerned, those were court-appointed students from outside districts, and we were in charge to educate them. So we were billing those districts, whether it's been many of the city schools where those students were placed. So that's the tuition students that we're referring to.
Okay, that's what I thought. What confused me was that payments weren't made from relatively local districts.
And there is some services that students require that some districts don't offer. For example, autism. Sometimes students will be placed in those IU services. They'll receive services from the IU, where the IU would bill us. So we pay tuition for our students who attend those programs in that situation.
Right. Okay, that's what I didn't understand about the tuition. Now, as far as cyber school costs, my understanding is we have to pay 70% of what it costs us to educate a student to cyber schools as their tuition.
There is an annual daily membership fee, and that's where they use that formula from, and that's how they generate that. So the number I gave you was based on the 1920 formula fee.
Okay, so we don't have a formula fee for 2021.
No, it's they call it a year in arrears type situation.
Okay, now, as far as the larger number of students attending cyber schools, I understand there was an issue with COVID and people were afraid. But from what I was told by numerous people, the fact that busing was removed from the budget, and that was my concern, is that these people would get so fed up with this district that they would jump to outside cyber, and it seems that they have. Now, we can certainly hope that they will come back in the future. But this is a major concern. I mean, in this time of COVID, when people have lost their jobs and they weren't able to work, and then you have 2-income households, and then stop busing, not offer busing. And then when you did, it wasn't until August 10th. Now, I have looked at the motion that was put forth, and all it says is motion by, seconded by, to approve a cost not to exceed $800,000 for transportation through Georgia's Transportation Company Incorporated for student busing for the 2021 school year. That's what it says. There's no indication in that motion that tuition would be, you know, the tuition that's in arrears would be used for that. It certainly didn't.
That was the if you would go and look at the enclosures from that meeting, that was
Yeah,
actually.
I would have to look at those
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, that was in the enclosure, that information.
However, I don't believe, and I could be wrong, I've been wrong before, that anything in the enclosure or anything else led anybody to believe that busing for the athletes to their games was going to be included when children aren't being bused from town. And that's concerning as well. And I've heard from parents whose kids have to walk, and they're pretty ticked off about it. And I think that you should understand that and maybe do something to rectify that. I don't know what to tell you to do. We did try for special meetings so people could at least vent their issues and feelings where they felt that they were heard by their government, but that didn't work either. It would be nice if somehow, at least during the winter months, we could provide transportation to those children if we could find the money somewhere. I'd like that to happen. And I do understand the financial position that we're in right now is precarious, to say the least. And I will do the math on these numbers that you gave and look at it, and I have a feeling that cyber is going to end up costing a lot more than what full busing would have cost us, and that's scary. But I do appreciate the time and the explanations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kemmer? Mr. Kemmer?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hello? Yes, real quick, couple questions. The first one is, you had outlined about how other schools owe us tuition. And you did touch on a couple spots where we would be paying tuition to other areas. Is there any out or overdue or tuition owed to other districts by our district?
At this point, I am not aware of any.
Have there been in the past?
Yes, there has been times where we have delayed payment, and there's times where we delay payment because we're checking to make sure that those students actually did attend, and at the time they attended, they are one of our students.
Okay, and then I have another, statement with a couple questions to follow. So as administrator, do you see the charter schools as competition for our district moving forward?
I think any school's competition for our district. I think competition breeds people to perform at their peak level. But I do feel it is definitely competition. I do feel that there's an unfair competition because of the promotion and the advertisements, the way they can portray things. In addition, there's many cyber schools who will change their name after a certain period because that'll deter them having a 3-year either performance rating or different things. So I think that the biggest thing is if you look at comparison of cyber schools and brick and mortar type districts, I think that would give you a special.
Sorry to cut you off. So in light of that, what are we doing, the administration doing to tighten their belts to be able to compete essentially with these non-brick and mortar schools?
When we, with the building level principals, we reach out to the parents and have discussions with them regarding, the areas that we also offer to. More recently, last year, for example, our lava students, we would reach out to them and, promote our program. This year, when we would get notice of cyber school students, our administration would reach out to them and try and encourage them to stay with us and try it. Many of them were leaving before they knew it was going to have options here with our district with either synchronous or asynchronous type learning options. And some of them felt since they already enlisted, they were just going to keep there. But I will say that some of them, did decide to come back to our district as well. So our administration has reached out to them personally.
And last question, and I appreciate your time. You're doing a great job. School choice has been a topic in like the recent elections. How would school choice affect the whole realm of what Pennsylvania does and our school district, particularly for a financial standpoint?
If not to get political, I think the school choice, there's many different definitions of it out there. Some people actually feel that they'll contact us because they get a letter in the mail as required from federal law, from districts who are saying we're not performing at a level and that they want to enroll their student here. But when it comes to the state of Pennsylvania, school choice comes within districts. So for example, some districts like Bethlehem, Pocono Mountain that have multiple high schools within their boundaries, if one high school is performing better than the other, there's situations that may allow the parents to have school choice, even though they don't live within the boundary of wherever that cutoff may be, to send them to those districts. But school choice as being discussed now, there's a lot to it. And without sitting down and going through module by module what school choice is, whether it be there's school choice based on tuition where the school would pay a tuition rate similar to what we do now with cyber schools. There's also discussions of tax credits, for example, EITC, earned income tax credits, where businesses can put their money into an earned tax revenue type source, and then students could apply for scholarships, and that source of finances may be able to be offset to send that student to another district. Many of the private and I'll say parochial schools have EITC tax credit programs set up to where businesses in the area could develop a income tax. I know there's a Newman scholarship, for example, for the Diocese of Harrisburg. I'm not sure the Allentown Diocese what their program is, but there is a tax credit for a certain parochial or private school. And if a student falls within if their parents fall within a certain income, they may be able to apply for a tuition credit to where if it costs $10,000, and I'm just using an example, Mr. Kemmer, to where it costs $10,000, they may qualify for $8,000, and the parents only have to pay $2,000, but that's the private setting. So there's a lot to the school choice. When you really take a look at it, there's so much information regarding that one subject that to put it all in a 5-minute presentation would be very difficult.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot with that, and I appreciate knowing that you have given it a lot of thought and have been up on it. So I really appreciate that you are vigor with learning it. That's all I have. Thank you.
I have Mr. Berkeley.
Yes. Has there been any thought about just maybe sending out a survey and seeing what it might take to bring some of these cyber school kids back to the district?
We have not done that, the survey, other than a physical survey. We've just reached out to them in person. But as far as a survey, we have not completed anything, but I will take that and run with it because I think that's a great idea.
Just looking at numbers, maybe we can pinpoint, one reason or another why, maybe there's a reason that nobody knows that or nobody's saying that they're going to the outside cyber schools, and maybe it can be corrected. That might be a cheaper option than them staying in the outside cyber schools.
Yeah, that is for sure. I will definitely, as I say, we will take that and run with it. And actually, I'll put that on my list to reach out to other districts to see if they have, done something similar. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, this time, Mr. Fuller, everyone who requested to speak had an opportunity to speak.
Okay, in that case, I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Mr. Belts?
Trying to find the unmute button. Looks like Barb and Dave still have something to say.
Did they re-raise? They must have. Did they not raise it? They don't. If I get Ms. Bose?
Yeah, I have a question.
Oh,
for
I'm
you.
sorry. Sorry about that.
That's all right. I have a question for you. I thought of it on cyber schools. Do cyber schools, since they are licensed by the state, do they have to pay teasers for the teachers?
I don't want to say for sure. I'd have to look at that, but I believe they're a public school entity, so I would imagine they would.
Okay, so they would have some of the unfunded mandates that we deal with.
Yes, that would be correct. If they do pay, they are considered public schools, so I would imagine because of it being, the way they're listed.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought about it when, after I muted myself again. And the other question I have, and I forgot to ask, was on the subject of property tax elimination. Now, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but should it become law that the state has to pay for the public education and property taxes for schools would only be used to pay off the debt, and for anything extra that we decided to offer, would then the state have to pay all the PSERS costs and all that because that's part of education?
I would imagine, and again, this is just me speaking without having any type of information in front of me, that the state and the school district would still be required, as they are doing right now, to pay for the pension because of it being legislative. Now, if something changes, that could always change. I know recently, over the last several years, the pension plan has changed for new teachers, new individuals in the public sector for education. So there would always be that as a possibility.
Right, I realize that they've gone to a more of a 401k plan is what I understand.
Yes.
But if the state was required to fund the schools, then it just seems to me it would also include teasers. And, any other benefits that the state would be required to cover that. Because it just makes me, I understand why the teachers unions wouldn't want it, but it seems to me that the school districts would be able to use tax dollars to provide a lot of extras. And I just don't understand why districts might be against property tax elimination if it could benefit the students. It was just a question I thought of. Thank you for answering.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Fuller?
In that case, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I think Dave still has his hand raised.
Was that from earlier, or was that? That may have been from earlier.
I think it's still raised. Let me scroll back.
I don't see it under attendees.
Yeah, it looks like it's gone now.
All right, Mr. Fuller, I'll bring it back to you.
Okay.
I think it's raised. It's not raised?
I do not see it. Nope.
Not that I can see.
Let me share the screen. Let me see the share.
Yeah, if I go to view,
Yep, I don't. Yeah, are you able to see this screen now in front of you? Attendees at.
yeah, I was going back through my,
Okay. All right.
I think it was raised for a while while everyone else was speaking, but there's
Well,
no-
you're right, because when they speak, if they don't lower their hand, I'll lower their hand, because I know Ms. Bozeman said that it kept popping up, so she was raising her hand. Okay. Mr.
can
Fuller,
anybody else see the screen? I can't see it.
I don't see anything under attendees. I have 20 listed attendees. Are you able to see that screen in front of you?
JJ, on your
No.
screen, I can still see your Acrobat agenda. I
Oh,
can see Zoom.
okay, well, let's see if I can bring that back. Are you able to see it now? Attendees and panelists?
No, I'm still just seeing the agenda.
Just the,
It
just
might
the
be
agenda.
something with Zoom. Zoom won't show itself.
Hold on. Ms. Bose now is, yes, Ms. Bose?
I was just gonna say, we can only see the agenda, that's it.
Yeah, okay. Yep. Yeah, so see, like Ms. Bose, for example, talks, so her hand would still be up. I just see hers at this time.
Maybe you could unmute Dave to see if because he's still in attendance, correct?
Yes, but I don't see any hand raised to unmute.
Well, could you unmute him so we could verify that his hand's not raised? You go back to,
Yep, let me see if I can find this. Because when they raise their hand, they jump to the top. Hello? Hello?
It looks like his mic is still muted there.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe he had to leave. I don't know. Okay. All right. Mr. Fuller, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, I make a motion that we adjourn. Let's call it a night. We can do this again tomorrow.
All right.
second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.